MJ was pretty phenomenal. And not only were we considered the top 2 guards, we were considered top 2 players in the league for years.
Welcome to the platform. We have a special guest with us, NBA champion, top 50 greatest player of all time, Hall of Famer, Big 3 commissioner, so many titles, Mr. Clyde the Glide Drexler. Thank you for joining us today, man. It's really an honor for us to be, with your presence today, man.
It's a pleasure to hang out with you guys. Anytime we're talking hoops, it's a good day.
It's a great day.
It's a great day.
Thanks for being on here with us.
Yeah, appreciate you, Clyde.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Justin. Yeah.
So Clyde, we're gonna start off from your early years of playing, straight from high school. So I read that you played a center at 6'6", starting in high school, or
I played every position.
Yeah.
It just, back then, if you could bring it up in the press, you could do it. You could do whatever you could do, and I did everything. Thank God.
No limitations.
No limitations.
No limitations, Norris. Let me tell you something. I was one of the tallest guys on my team. I was 6'7", and we had another guy who was 6'7". And so he and I were the 2 big men, but I broke the press. I made the assists. I did everything. They didn't limit you to just being a big man, which was great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was during a time where, big men were getting the most credit. So, like, for you, for you to play every position, were you getting a lot of credit during that time, especially because you could play center?
Well, growing up in the inner city of Houston, guys, let me tell you, there was a lot of talent. And a lot of the good talent was 6'7", 6'8" guys who could play, who were versatile, who were very athletic. And so you didn't really stand out because there were a lot of you. Oh. And so you just had to continue to try to win and put up numbers, and hopefully some college will notice that and offer you a scholarship.
Hold on. You mean to tell me it was a lot of guys down there flying like you?
There's a whole bunch of you there.
No. I can only think about people on one hand that can fly like you in the history of the game now. Come on, Clyde.
Well, thank you, Norris. But I'm telling you, at that time in Houston, Texas, there were about 6, 7, 8 guys who could play, and they didn't have all of the skills, but they had some of the athleticism. Okay. And they were big, and they were quick and mobile.
Got you. Yes, sir.
So Clyde, now we're thinking about Houston. When you were going into transition into college, were you thinking about staying at home, or were you thinking about playing elsewhere? And kind of walk us through that journey of you deciding to be a Houston Cougar.
Well, Chris, it's one of those things where you always want to stay home because the local guys are going to get the preference from the coaches and the fans. So that. And so you think about, if I go to California, the California guys are going to get first preference. If I go to New York, the New York guys are going to get first preference. So if we have a decent team here in the city of Houston or in the South, that's where I'm headed.
Did you really consider any other school? Like, really?
I could have gone to Rice University, which is considered the Harvard of the South.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they weren't good enough from a competition standpoint. Mm-hmm. It was more of an academic thought. Yeah. And so being a highly competitive guy, I'm thinking, that's not the route I'm going to go. And then the University of Houston, they had a guy named Rob Williams and a guy named Larry Mishaw. Those are 2 guys I played against in high school. And I'm thinking, if I join them and I can convince a couple of more guys in the area to join them, we're going to have a pretty good team. And so that's what I did.
I think you was right about that prediction.
So Clyde, so when you were heading in, how did the dream come into the picture?
Well, okay, so I joined Rob Williams, Larry Mishaw, and then I convinced the best player in the state of Texas on paper was a guy named Michael Young, who was 6'7", like me, could do everything, right? I told you, there were a lot of them guys.
Okay. His son is Joe Young that got drafted for the Indiana Pacers.
Exactly. Mike and I were great friends, and Mike could have gone anywhere in the world. I had about 10 offers. He had 100. And so I convinced him, because we were good friends, to go to University of Houston to play with Rob and Larry Mishaw, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking we're going to be really good because we're big, we're versatile, and these guys are proven. We know these guys are killers, right? Mm-hmm. Michael was a McDonald's All-American, and so we know we got a pretty good team. And then a month after we get there, some guy sends Guy Lewis at the University of Houston, Hakeem Olajuwon. So, but he couldn't.
Wow.
Here's the key, guys. Back then, he wasn't really refined. He couldn't play.
Right.
He was 6'11", but he really had no basketball skills. He had great legs because he played soccer, and he could jump, and he could run like a deer. And so Guy Lewis, being the consummate coach, thinking, I can teach any big guy how to play the post. If he's got height, I love him. And so Hakeem went to the right spot, and he developed into Hakeem Olajuwon.
That's crazy. Yeah. Such a small amount of time.
Wow, that's a little known story.
Think about this. He had Moses Malone helping him, who was 3-time MVP of the league at that time. We had Guy Lewis, one of the best postman teachers of the modern basketball era. He had teammates like me, Michael Young, Rob Williams, who were all pretty good players. And he was surrounded by just a consortium of guys who wanted to see him get better. But Hakeem Olajuwon put in the work, and he became the dream.
The dream.
So how competitive now was those practices?
It had to be
you know, we
had to be.
How competitive was those practices?
Well, in Phi Slama Jama, now, you know, that's one of the greatest teams ever assembled, by far.
What does that mean? Because for some viewers and some people in the audience,
especially younger kids these days,
let them know what that means.
They're not gonna understand what exactly that means.
Well, Chris, sometimes you just have to do your research because we don't have enough time to bring them up to speed. I have enough time, Chris.
Just know everybody in the starting five was flying and slamming and jamming.
Right.
A big talented team. It was like a college dream team, all right? And so the second team was guys like Mr. Indiana, Mr. Chicago, Mr. Mr. California. They were on our second team, and they were all really good. And so it was all about fighting for positions, and our practices were 2-3 hours, and they were tough and physical. There would be a couple of fights or altercations almost every practice. And it was because guys wanted to play. They were fighting for their positions. And Guy Lewis was the kind of coach who would always say, hey, if you do good in practice, you're going to get some time. And so those guys put in the work, and we made each other better. That's how it happened.
So Clyde, I read something, right? So when like a new freshman came in, the initiation was for you to dunk on them. Was that true or no?
No. Being a captain of the team, my job was to keep everybody on one page and kind of help the unity of the team, right? So I was the unity guy. I would never do that.
Hold on. I'm sure you didn't discriminate on who you dunked on.
Right.
No. Now, if they got in the way doing a scrimmage or practice,
when they got in the way.
So Clyde, you guys were dominant at that period of time in college, and as you guys was working through the playoffs, you guys was really building a lot of steam as a team, and everybody. Phi Slama Jama is coming in town. Here come Drexler. Here come the Dream. Walk us through a little bit in the championship games when you guys were playing. What was that like going in, being favored?
So Chris, here's how it happens. We were picked third in our own conference the first year we made it to the Final Four. So that just tells you what people thought of our team, right? They didn't know. They had no idea. And so the next year, we're returning everybody, and we're going to get better. So now we're the favorites. So I think we go 33-1, and we're running the table. But everywhere we go, and this is my junior year, everywhere we go, it's like everybody wants to see this team, Phi Slama Jama. It was like being on with Michael Jackson or with the Beatles or somebody, right? It's like everywhere you went, people were just frenzied. We never played in front of a crowd that wasn't sold out. And people waiting, dying to get in around the building, right? And so that was what we came up with. I remember we played one game in the Superdome, and it was 55,000 people. For a college game? Come on.
What?
Wow.
Come on. So we were accustomed to playing under the lights, but they never thought we were good until we made it to the finals, right? So we came out of nowhere. And so the next year we had all this hoopla fanfare. It was like unbelievable. I liken it to being on the 92 Dream Team, Chris. The original, the only Dream Team.
It's the only Dream Team.
Make sure you get it right.
No, for sure.
That's for sure. So, Clyde, you played your senior year, and it's time for draft, right? So, when you were going into the draft, did you ever think that you would be getting drafted and playing in the NBA? Was that one of your dreams, or how did that look for you?
Well, Chris, as you all know, if you love the game, your dream is playing on an NBA team. Never knowing if you'd be good enough to do it, that's what motivated you to work harder, right? And so now you have a great storied college career. You're averaging 15 and 10 on a world championship team. And even though we didn't win it, we were still darn good. Now, you're academic All-American. You're doing everything you're supposed to do. So I come out my junior year because the Houston Rockets had the first and the third pick in the draft. And they basically assured me they take me with one of those 3 picks, right? 2 picks, first or third. I say, hey, that's pretty darn good. No need to go back to my senior year.
Ain't get no better than that.
I'm about to fulfill my dream, right? I'm about to get paid. But anyway, they ended up not taking me. They took Rodney McCray and Ralph Sampson. And so I dropped to number 14. And the good thing is, the best thing about that is about a week before the draft, the Rockets called me and said, hey, there's a chance we may pick someone else. We got a new coach. He's not really feeling you. He may pick someone else. And I said, thanks for telling me. So the Portland Trailblazers were calling me for a workout. So I ended up going there the week before the draft for a couple of days, and they liked the way I tested. And they said, you're not going to be around for 14, but if you are, you'll be the best player, and we'll pick you. But they had committed to, I think, Randy Brewer.
Wow.
So if they had not given me that call and I had not worked out for the Portland Trailblazers, there's no telling what would have happened.
Wow. Crazy. I'm glad they
We did not know that story.
I did not know that.
I don't know if anybody knew that story.
I do not know any.
And that's when I figured there are a lot of GMs who don't know a damn thing about talent. So here's the deal. Now, I played in Texas. I played in Houston. And the Dallas Mavericks had 3 picks in the first 14 picks. They didn't take me with either one. The Rockets had 2. They didn't take me, right? And finally, they always invite the top picks to the draft in New York, right?
Yeah.
And so I was one of those guys who's supposed to go real early, but he's staying there late. And now it's starting to get embarrassing because people are thinking, uh-oh, what's going to happen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So now, Rockets passed me up. The Mavericks passed me up. I think they picked Dale Ellis, Derek Harper, and Uwe Blob, all 3 picks, right? So I'm thinking, woo. And so the Rockets picked Ralph Sampson, Rodney McCray, and I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting. I thought I played well enough to go in the top 3. So finally, the Knicks get the 12th pick, and I'm still there. And the fans in the Garden are hollering, Drexler. And I'm thinking, oh, there's a reason I got passed over. I'm going to the Knicks because I would have loved to have played in New York, right?
Right.
And so the fans are hollering Drexler, and I'm getting ready. When the guy calls the name, I'm getting ready to stand up. And the guy says, Darryl Walker. I say, what?
What?
And right away, I didn't get mad. I was, upset because I'm a competitor. But I'm thinking, boy, there are a lot of guys who don't know how to pick talent in this league. These guys are terrible. And I'm thinking, and Darryl was a nice player, but finally Portland selected me with the 14th pick. And the best day of my whole basketball career was when I finally made it to camp, and I put on my jersey for the first game, whether it's preseason or regular season, I don't know, because you realize, you know what? You made the team.
Right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So was Portland the only team you worked out for?
Yeah, that was the only, because it was a given that Houston was going to take me.
You were supposed to be going to Houston, okay?
Yeah, so they had committed. All these teams had committed to all these other people. So they really gave, they really put me behind the 8 ball. But you know what? Everything that happens is God's will. So that's the way I've always looked at it. And for many years, I tortured those teams that passed me up.
You tortured a lot of teams.
Right. For that reason, right.
Oh, man.
So can you talk about your rookie season? I know you averaged 7 points, but then the following year you averaged 21. Can you talk about, just the change and how it was for you, going from college into that?
Well, being a rookie, you got to show some humility. These are grown men. These guys are strong. They can play. They're all drafted high. They're all best players on their teams coming up. So you have a lot of respect for that. But you got to love the competition art. And so for me, it was about these are good players, but when we get to practice, we'll see how good they are, right? I love that. That's what I live for. So, yeah, Calvin Nat at the small forward at Portland. He was just below an all-star, averaging about 15 and 8 boards. Yeah, Jim Paxson at the 2 guard, who was an all-star the year before, averaging about 21 points, 3 rebounds. And so at the 2 and 3, I'm thinking these guys are stacked. And they were young, like 24, 25. I was 21, right? And so the coach was Jack Ramsey. He was an old-school coach. And he didn't like playing rookies. And let me tell you something. You better learn his system. He had 3,000 plays you had to learn before you played.
Wow.
At University of Houston, we might have had 5 plays. Might have. Jack Ramsey had 1,000 plays and a playbook with each one of them. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? It was hard because I held out a fall camp. And it was hard because, you know, if you hold out, you're already behind and you're a rookie. So you're going to get no respect, trust me. And from the old school coaches, they're looking at you like, boy, you'll never play for me. You're in the doghouse. And so that's why Jack Ramsey was the only guy that ever stopped me.
Wow.
Because let me tell you something.
That's impressive.
Every day in practice, I was a problem. Let me tell you. I used to light guys up to the point where they go, oh, no, I can't play against him in practice and have something for the game, too. So finally, after bugging the hell out of Coach Ramsey to play me, I played in all 82 games, but he didn't give me more than 10 minutes a game, right? And so after the All-Star break, though, I said, hey, Coach, I know all your plays. I know everything. I'm a good defender, so you can put me on the floor more to play more defense. So I convinced him of that, and I ended up averaging 25 minutes after the All-Star my rookie year a game, which was a tremendous feat for one of those old-school coaches.
Absolutely.
Wow. So Clyde was – go ahead, Norris. Do your thing.
Clyde, I like to educate the new school, the current status, the current young players. Sometimes there's not an appreciation for, you know, the older players that came before. So could you talk about the competition level in the 80s and in the early 90s? Because there's some disrespecting that's going on that I feel from these new school younger players. And I grew up a student of the game. My father studied with me, older players growing up, so I was able to get an appreciation at a young age for, you know, players in the 80s, players in the early 90s, and then obviously I grew up in the 2000s, so I saw all of that. But could you talk about how elite the athletes were, how stiff the competition was, and how good, skilled basketball players there were back then in the NBA?
What you got to understand is most people, 99% of all people, they only have opinions based upon what they've seen, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you didn't see these guys, how are you going to know how good they were? And so your opinions are very narrow. They're not broad, and they're not based on facts. And so that's what the old school guys know. So I never saw Elgin Baylor, right?
Right.
And I love this game because I looked at what he did. I watched films. I never saw him in person, but I watched a lot of his film. This guy was one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Anybody ever talk about that? And if you ask some of the greatest players, like Bill Russell, who's a friend of mine, 13 years he won the championship, 11 of them, right? And was in the finals for another year. So 12 years out of 13, he could have been the champion, right? And the 1 year he didn't, he was injured. So he's considered the greatest winner of all time in sport. And he's a bright guy too, right? So I said, hey, Bill, who's the best player you've ever seen play? He saw everybody. He said, hands down, Elgin Baylor.
Wow.
Hands down. This was like 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
10 years ago.
And nobody else.
He saw everybody.
And he's seen
everything.
All the way up.
I think Bill Russell might go ahead.
He said the only guy in his stratosphere was Wilt. He said, other than that, everybody else. And he said Oscar would be next. Can you believe that?
Nah, I think Bill Russell, I respect him a lot, but I think he's tripping a little bit though on that.
No. The key is you never saw Elgin
Baylor. See him though. Norris, you didn't see him.
Hey, no, listen.
This point right now.
No, because I have saw some of their old games, and I understand that. But to not include anybody from the modern era though, or from the 80s or from the 70s or
Norris, he saw all of that,
and he still said that.
And he still said that hands down.
That's a heck of a statement.
The reason is because He said Baylor was 6'5". He was the first guy to use his athleticism to play above the rim and make everybody else look stupid. But he could shoot. He could rebound. I mean, he could get 60 points on you and you're double teaming him every night. He said he'd never seen anything like it. Then the guy was durable, never missed a game. He said he's the best player he's ever seen play because he was unstoppable. He said he shot a high percentage from the field. He's very efficient. He said your guy had no weaknesses and you couldn't stop it. Now he saw me. He saw me. He saw you. He saw you. No. Yeah. He saw LeBron. He saw MJ. He saw Magic and Bird and Julius and Kareem, and he still said Elgin Baylor, hands down.
That's an interesting take. I've never heard that before. That's a very interesting take.
But see, it's all about history. You can't judge unless you've seen. Now here's a guy who's seen everything.
He saw it all.
And when, he's not getting paid to say that. Let me just tell you that. That's his real opinion with a ton of integrity.
Dang.
That's respect. You gotta respect that.
And then when you look at the numbers Elgin put up back then, you go, wow, those are catastrophic numbers. Only he and Wilt put up those kind of numbers. And then you say, you know what? I know why he says that.
Absolutely. Now, his scoring numbers, if you look in the history books and the record books, you see Elgin Baylor's name a lot in there. You see his name a lot in there. I did know that.
So you only know who you've seen. And so the smart guy would say, well, these guys are pretty good that I saw. Like if you lived in Indianapolis, you may say Reggie Miller is the best shooter I've ever seen. And because you never seen anybody else. That doesn't mean Reggie's not good, but you didn't see who he was competing against. So you can love Reggie, as we all do, but you got to be kind to the other people who played the game.
Absolutely. Right. But could you tell them how there were elite athletes back then? Obviously yourself, I always use you when they talk about how the older school players, like, because we're going to get to this point later about Michael Jordan and his competition and things like that. A lot of things I hear is, oh, he didn't play against athletic players, or the guys wasn't as good, or they were slow or not skilled, or whatever the excuses are. And could you educate them how good of an athlete you were and how good of an athlete and how skilled those players were that you guys played against?
Let me just tell you, and when I came into the league, here's the deal. The small forwards were 6'5", 6'6". They were guys like Marcus Johnson, Kelly Tripucka, Mark Aguirre, Kiki Vandeweghe was 6'8", Alex English was 6'8", like Calvin Nat was 6'6". And so you had these small forwards who were 6'6", 6'5". And so Walter Davis was 6'5", David Thompson was 6'4". So those guys were not too big, right?
Right.
I came in as a two-guard / point guard, and Magic was a tall point. So the league was starting to get bigger. You had to understand. And so now when I became a 6'7" two-guard, and I'm posting up every team's two-guard, we got an automatic advantage every night. Every team in the league got big. They had to have a two-guard. Yeah. You know, so you kind of change the way the league is playing, right?
Exactly.
So right. Those guys were very talented, but when you add that athleticism and the guys who's able to do more, now you got a 6'9" James Worthy, a small forward, 6'9" Magic at the point. You got a 6'9" power forward. You got Kareem 7'2". Who's going to beat those guys? And so you got to change with the times. And so we made the league bigger, and because we were better and big. But for the most part, here's the athleticism. When you're playing against guys like Dominique Wilkins, night in and night out. I mean, are you kidding me? George Gervin, Julius Erving. You know how good these guys were? Do you understand?
Nice, talk that talk, OG. Let them know. Please let them know.
Let them.
And all the while playing team ball, not even using, the usage wasn't even close to what the guys get now. These guys are really skilled and efficient. And so for a guy like me, I hate to talk about myself, but I will brag.
Oh, you cut off. You cut off a little bit. There we go. Just making sure.
So I'm 6'7". I got huge hands like the doctor, like Michael. We all got huge hands, right? Mm-hmm. So I run a 4.2 40, which is pretty. And not many people can do that, right? I run a 4.2 40. Hold up. I'm benching over 300 pounds every year. I mean, more, but at least that, right? So you're strong as a bull. And I got a 44, 45-inch vertical jump. And I use it every night. You tell me in the history of the game, who's been more athletic than that?
It ain't been none. It ain't been too many that's like that. Hey,
Wait,
Clyde. A
4.240. What shoes did you have on?
Maybe faster.
Oh, goodness.
I'm telling you,
Hey, hold on. Hey,
you
Yo,
can't
spikes.
Relax.
Clyde, what shoes did you wear that? I mean, did you do that in too?
No, I did it in college. We ran. I was racing this football player who thought he was faster, and I beat him in the 40 rather handily, and he was shocked. but you know, that's old legend there, right?
Right.
But here's the key: there are a lot of athletic guys, and we were.
Yeah.
I think my generation was the first wave of guys who worked out year round, who never got out of shape. You know, when I first got into the league in '83. At halftime, there used to be guys smoking in the locker room, okay? And beer was everywhere. Well, I was a full-time workaholic in the weight room, in the gym, doing Pilates, doing yoga, and didn't drink, didn't smoke. And so for those guys to keep up with me in practice, it was a chore, let me tell you.
right.
Yeah.
And so that changed the game a lot, let me just tell you.
Clyde, I don't want to skip over the fact that you could play point guard. Now, I know me and you've had some conversations, and a lot of these other guys don't know that you played point guard a season.
Yeah, I did. Because of Magic Johnson, Magic had so much success. He was so good. And so Jack Ramsey said, well, Clyde, you can do what he does. Why don't we put you at the point? And, of course, I'm trying to get on the court. I'm going to say, okay. And so the first year, and it's basically I'm playing defense and I'm a facilitator. So that's how I got on the court, right? And so the first year I made the All-Star team was as a point guard, first time ever.
Telling you guys. People don't know that. But
People don't know
that's
that.
a
All-Star
fact.
team.
That's some knowledge right there.
That's a
Now, here's the
knowledge,
key.
Clyde.
Here's the key. Now in college, I averaged 15 and 10 boards, right? And I'm playing with all these other big old guys. 6'10", Larry Mishard, 7 foot Hakeem, Michael Young, 6'7", and our point guard was 6'3", and he had a 48-inch vertical. So to get a rebound, you had to really out-jump your teammate, right? You had to out-jump your teammate. So now I go to the NBA, and I jump from being like a small forward rebounder guy to like the point guard. So the skills have always been there for every generation. You got to just look at the talent. But what you can't see was how hard guys played, what an impact they made on the game, and how much fun they were to watch. Those are the three things that you can never know unless you were there.
Right.
I respect that. Thanks for that education for the new school, for sure.
That's education. So Clyde, we can't, as we progress, let's talk about that dream team, because that's one of the greatest.
Hold, Chris, hold on. Before we get to the dream team, it is MJ Mondays.
No, not today.
It's MJ Monday every Monday. So we got to talk about MJ. We got to talk about the battles with MJ before we get to the dream team, because it was a lot of battles with MJ, and most people considered y'all two the top shooting guards or wing guards during y'all time. So could you please talk about that before the dream team, because the dream team is a story all to itself.
Well, Norris, I like to tell you, MJ was pretty phenomenal. And not only were we considered the top two guards, we were considered top two players in the league for years.
Period. Period.
Absolutely.
Period.
Right.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Let me get that straight. Y'all two were the top two players in the league back then.
So he was incredible because he could do so much. You know, Michael was efficient. He was a volume shooter. He never was injured. He played hard. But Michael would he'd have 35 points before you even realize he even scored. He was that good of a player. He was much better than you think he was.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we know he's pretty good, right? But he was better than you think he was.
So what was that like, Clyde? What was that like? Because nobody knows, but since you were there and we know how great you are, what was it like playing against Michael and being able to guard him with your speed, your athleticism, your strength? What was that like? Because people don't know. Everybody guess.
Well, the thing is, you know he's going to get a lot of touches, so you're not going to shut him out, right? I mean, I can remember one game where I don't know if he was 9 for 30, but he still had 45 points, you know, so you're not going to ever shut him out.
Right. That had to be in the early 80s.
Yeah, probably the mid-80s, but we only only played twice a year, so I would have loved to have played him a whole lot more. But I love playing against him. You didn't have to get up for those games. I was the kind of player I love competition. So you got to wake me up when we're playing like the old school Sacramento Kings or the Clippers back in the day. You got to wake me up. But when we play good competition, dude, that's why you love the game. This is what matters, right? I love playing against Michael, and it was always the challenge. But you knew you weren't going to stop him. You just want to slow him down. So my thought was always to make him shoot the jumper, right? Make him shoot the jumper. So that was, he didn't have any weaknesses, but I thought if there was ever a weakness in his game, it was at that time probably the three-point shooting or the long jumper, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a weakness, but he's not going to get all your big men in foul trouble because he's going to drive every time. So if you back up, you might have a chance of him taking that jumper. So I'll give you guys a little tidbit. 92 NBA Finals, right? We're playing the Bulls. And I'm thinking, I'm going to challenge Michael. I'm going to back up off of him, and I'm going to say, you know what? You can have that jump. I ain't ever going to guard you out there, right? And so he shoots 2 three-point shots, and I go down court and say, oh, you can have that all night. And he's missing, right? and so finally, the second half of the game, I think it was, he catches the fire, right? And I think he makes the three. He makes a couple threes, and I wasn't on him, just for the record. I don't think it would have mattered. But here's the key. He makes the threes, and remember he gave you the shrug? He shrugged, right?
Right.
He put his hands up like, I don't know. And the shrug was because he couldn't make them in the first half, and in the second half he started making the three. That's why.
Drop that knowledge.
Yeah.
Drop that knowledge.
Drop that knowledge, Jordan.
Drop that knowledge.
I like that.
I like that knowledge, Clyde.
I was waiting for you to say
So
something.
he's like, I don't know why they're going in now, but they weren't going in earlier. But that's just how good he was, man. If you challenge him, he's going to take the challenge, and he's going to find a way to win.
Nice. Yeah. Now go ahead, Chris, with the dream team. I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, hey, listen. I mean, but we got to talk about the dream team. One of the greatest and simple teams ever. And it was the first time that professional basketball players from America was able to play in the Olympic setting. So that had to have been exciting. What was that like getting a phone call, Clyde, when they called you and asked, like, would you be a part? Like, what was that like? What was your thoughts like then?
Well, Chris, again, just kind of, it reminded me a little bit of the draft, the 83 draft. Michael Jordan and I are fighting for MVP of the league, right?
Right.
So now this is the same year and we ended up playing in the finals. And we had been in the finals in 90, with best team in the league, best record in 91. So you got a pretty good run of being a really good player, right? So it's 92, they're putting together the team. And they got Magic on the team, who we love. We're happy to see him back. But Magic didn't play that year. Remember, he retired.
Yeah, he did.
So he's on the team, and we're going, all right, what's going on here? It's a little nostalgia, but we're happy to see Magic playing basketball because we love him, right? And then Bird had some back troubles, and he really, was not playing at the Larry Legend level at that time, right? And so now he's on the team, and you go, this is going to be a pretty good team. And then you got Michaels, and then they said Patrick Ewing and David Robinson, Karl Malone. And I'm thinking, well, I know nobody asked me, and I'm in the prime of my game. We've been in the finals, and so finally they're like, we got the 10 players. And so they asked me, what you thought? I said, it's a great team. I think they're going to do very well. And then they say, well, why aren't you on? I go, you're going to have to ask the people who put that team together. That's because I thought it was some shiggity going on. You don't have me on the team. You don't have Isaiah Thomas on the team. We're two of the best players in the game, dude. And so what is that about? And so we're thinking, there's something wrong with the selection committee.
People didn't know that your team made it to the finals in '91 or in '90.
Yes.
People didn't know that you made it, that you led your team to the finals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're good perennial. And then the next year we had the best record in the league. And then the following year we're in the finals against the Bulls. Now, I did all that without one Hall of Famer playing with me. I mean, most of these other guys have 3 or 4 Hall of Famers playing with them, right?
Right.
Can you name one that I played with at Portland?
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
So
No,
it
sir.
was a tremendous feat because we had a great team and we were a team, right?
Right.
But as one of the best players in the game, you think they'd call you for the Olympic team. And because they didn't, I'm thinking, well, it's a tremendous honor to be selected. But if you don't, you know what that means? You get the summer off.
Right.
So it's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
So, but then you got the call.
Yeah.
Well, I got the call and I was like, oh, I had a two-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I'm thinking I needed knee surgery. That was the first year I was ever injured. So I had a knee surgery and I supposedly supposed to have a knee surgery in March. But I told him, you know what? I had some meniscus problem. And I told him, I want to finish the season. We may get deep into the playoffs. So I don't want to miss this. And so I kept getting it drained every week, trying to last the season before I had the surgery. And you guys all know how hard that is, right?
Yeah, I've had 3 minutes.
But back then, here's the difference. We didn't put a bullseye on your injury. We just kept it quiet, right? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm playing with basically one leg. Now I'm in the finals against the Bulls and MJ on one leg. First time I've ever been injured. But you couldn't say nothing. You just got to play. And now the chance to play on the Olympic team, I really wanted to just say, hey, guys, I need this surgery, so let me go and help. But I didn't want to miss that experience. And so I put off the surgery until like September because I wanted to play on the Olympic team. But the problem was I couldn't practice, and most days I had to get my knee drained after a practice. So I was trying to limit my damage.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looked like it was a lot of competitive practices whenever you guys did have a full practice.
Well, think about this. I got one leg. You know it's not coming from me. Bird's got a bad back. You know it's not coming from him. Chris Mullin is easy going. Scotty's easy going. Stockton's easy going. Patrick and David don't really care. Malone is easy going. Barkley's easy going. So it's only from two guys stirring it up.
Magic and MJ.
That's dope insight.
But let me tell you something. It was a great experience. We laughed a lot. We loved a lot. Got to know those guys on a personal level. Because, back then, guys, if you had on a different jersey, Chris,
right?
You really you respected your competition, but you didn't like those guys because you had to beat them. Mm-hmm. And so it was one of those deals where it was good to get to know them on a personal level because they're all outstanding individuals. It was a tremendous experience and a great moment in time.
Yeah. Question for you. Do you believe that because the mentality, the way it was back then, like now everyone grows up in the AAU era, everyone's friends or whatever like that. Do you think that not being friends and not hanging out with the guys from the other teams made competition a lot higher and a lot better?
Well, it's hard to say. Like Hakeem Olajuwon and I were brothers. Like when he came in from Nigeria, he came in on our floor. We took him in. We were like brothers, right? And so, but when we played against each other, I mean, he's trying to elbow me. If he got in the way, I'm gonna knee him. I mean, so you compete the way you compete. Yeah. But off the court, you're like brothers. So I don't care if guys kiss before games or after games, but when you get on that court,
you better play.
Come out to win.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. So Clyde, you spent over a decade in Portland. And
11 and a half years. 11
right.
and a half.
Yeah.
So and when you were there, you didn't play with a Hall of Famer. You led your team to the finals. You were in contention of MVP. You played on one of the best 92 teams out there. And now, boom, it's time for an opportunity for you to come back home. Let's talk about that.
God is good, Chris. I'm in my 12th year, right? Mm-hmm. And we're trying to win the championship. We're right there. We're a play or two away from winning it all. 3 years in a row, right? And so finally, I have my knee injury, and that set me back. If you look at it after that dream team, you look at the games I played per year, which were like 79, 82 per year. For the next 2 years, I think I played 52 games and 58 games, which for me, I never missed a game. I didn't get tape, I didn't stretch, but I never missed games, right? So after knee injury, I had like hamstring injury, calf injuries, because I think I came back too quickly. So I learned a lot, right? And so it set me back a couple years. But that 94, 95 year, I'm in my 12th year, and I'm thinking, I didn't fool around and got healthy again. So now, instead of rebuilding, which is what Portland was doing, which is what I thought was premature, that was way too premature. We were good. They started rebuilding. So I said, you know what? You got to do me a favor and let me go home to Houston, Paul Allen, where I got a chance to fight for a championship. Because otherwise, I don't want to play and develop young players. That's not – I would retire.
Right.
If you're going to do that, you need to be coaching. So the opportunity to go to Houston and play for a championship, how lucky was that? And it happened. And of course, we win in the very first year. I'm at home, all my family, friends. I mean, that was redemption for many years of frustration. It's not frustration because in a team game, Chris, you could have 50 points and 20 rebounds, right? But if I don't make the 2 free throws to tie or win the game, does that and you end up losing, does that mean you're not a champion? No. In a team game, you could be really good and still not win.
Yeah.
So you're only as good as your weakest link, right? You hear that a lot, but that's true. So it's not like tennis or golf. You're not the only one responsible. The whole team is responsible, and it's harder to win in a team concept.
Yeah.
Wow. See, most people didn't know that, Clyde, because, they thought that you were coming back to Houston to join the dream so that you could win a championship, but they didn't realize that you carried a team for 11 years without a Hall of Famer, you being the Hall of Famer.
And then during those playoffs, I think I averaged 25 and 7. So
you
did.
Sure.
in 92. So that's not really – you're not riding anybody's coattails. Let me just tell you.
Right.
For sure.
But the team – so Clyde, when you look at that, let's talk about, the team when you were finally traded there. The Rockets were right on the cuff of not even making the playoffs. Exactly.
That's why they broke up a championship team. They were disheveled. They had lacked leadership. They lacked unity. So Rudy Tomjanovich and a guy named Robert Barr thought that if they brought in a seasoned veteran like me who knew how to win and I was healthy, I could really help them right the ship. And so my job was to, first of all, get guys to kind of forget about what happened, who you don't like. I don't care. Let's try to get together, play some defense, stop the other team. Let's get healthy. Let's see how good we can be. So finally, Hakeem had an injury when I got there, so we ended up getting the 6th seed in the playoffs. But we ended up getting really healthy at the start of the playoffs.
Timing, I tell people all the time on championship team, timing is everything.
Everything.
Timing is everything.
It's the only thing, right?
Yes, sir. And you got to be a little bit lucky and be healthy.
See, you got to really be lucky just to stay healthy at the right time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But I tell you what, Hakeem Olajuwon was a beast. And Mario Elie, Robert Horry, Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell, those guys were unbelievable players. They don't get enough attention. They could really play.
Yeah. I got 2 questions for you. One more serious and the other one not so serious. But my first question is, who was instrumental in you becoming who you became or who you are as a basketball player?
Well, Justin, it's one of those deals where I always say, if you really will have a passion for something, set small goals and help you achieve your ultimate goal, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I was young, I loved Julius Erving. I loved Clyde Frazier. And I had another favorite player. His name was Randy Smith. And if you look at my game resembles all 3 of those guys, right? Because I watched all the film I could. And back then, we didn't have much. You didn't even have channels. You had one game of the week, right? So you didn't have ultimate channels. Right? So, and you had one game a week. So my game resembled Randy Smith, Julius Erving, and Clyde Frazier because I loved those players. So I emulated and stole all of their moves. And I actually stole George Gervin's finger roll and used it quite often. And George later told me he stole it from the doctor. And the doctor told me he stole it from Connie Hawkins.
Crazy.
So I would say the more you play, the luckier you get, but you got to put in the time. Like we put in 7-8 hours a day in the gym, weight room, getting prepared.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time. Say that, please. Please say that one more time.
We put in 7 or 8 hours per day, every day for years in the gym getting prepared. Now, these young players today, they put in 2 hours and then they hit the cryo and they get the therapies, but they don't put in the other 4 or 5 hours getting better, improving their skill level, left hand, right hand. I mean, they don't become complete, refined players. And that's what I love about Chris Johnson. His workouts, dude, if they work out with Chris, they're going to become a complete player. Let me tell you.
You got to do it.
He knows what to do.
Absolutely.
Who at a young age, who was getting in the gym with you? I guess who was working you out? Were you in there yourself? Did you have somebody rebounding? Like who was in there getting in the gym with you? Because I had my dad and obviously my brother, so everybody knows that. But like with you, who was it that, or whoever, how many people was it that got in the gym with you?
Well, Justin, that's a great question because a lot of people don't understand how to train, right? For me, I was lucky. I had an older brother who was 4 years older. And when you're 12 and he's 16, that's a tremendous difference, right?
Right.
And he let me hang out with him and his buddies, and he played basketball, never for the team, but every day he played basketball. So I would play with him and his buddies. And so finally, when I became 16 and I'm playing against guys my age, it was a whole lot easier because I put in the time, you know. I'm stronger. I'm a little bit better. You know, you got a better sense of what you're doing. But it's always time on the job. There's no shortcut. Put in the time.
100%.
Tell him, Clyde. Tell him.
All right. So the next question I have that's the funnier, or not as serious, is, are you still wearing the Kangaroo shoes?
Hey, let me tell you something. The Kangaroos
My mom told me that everybody wore them in college because of you. It was because of you that everybody got the Kangaroo. So I had to ask.
Those were some good shoes. And because I could really jump, it was fitting.
It made sense.
They had in basketball, they had me as the lead endorser, and in football, they had a guy named Walter Payton. So, I'll tell you a funny story. The president, the company was based in St. Louis, Missouri, right? So the CEO of the company was a guy named Bob Gam. So when Walter was getting ready to break his records and for the best rushing yards, he said, "What would you want, Clyde, if it was you?" I said, "Oh, a Lamborghini, like a black Lamborghini." So guess what Walter got for breaking the record?
A black Lamborghini.
Wow. But he should thank you. He should have thanked you back then.
Oh, yeah, he did.
God rest his soul.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
Chris, the big three is all about getting better, right? And
That's what
these
it's all
guys,
about.
I want to tell people the big three is not old man basketball. This is
No,
great
it's not.
competition.
Yeah.
These guys can really go at it. They're young. They're vibrant. The reason they're good because we play once a week, and the games, the first one to 25 is halftime. The first one to 50 is the winner. And these guys play with a lot of pride and a lot of passion.
You
gotta
take it
check it
seriously.
We gotta check it out. It's the competition level in the big three is amazing. But most people don't understand that, especially the young generation, the way you learn how to play the game isn't a 3-on-3 in a half-court set, and it's not getting up and down the court.
Yeah.
Plus you can increase your touches.
Absolutely, you get a lot of, and if you can really score, you are unstoppable. And the guys who put it together are incredible visionaries. Jeff Quantnitz, Ice Cube, them guys work every day. They love the big three. They're passionate about it. And it's been fun to work as their commissioner to help them grow this game. But it is very popular around the world.
So Clyde, even on thinking about the big three, I want our audience to know that you were one of the pioneers to open a gateway for us in China. A lot of people don't know this. So looking at the global basketball, we always talk about different players, and I rarely hear your name come up, but I know that you were as impactful as anybody in opening up the doors for us in China. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, Chris, I rarely talk about myself, but in this interview, I've had to do it a lot just for historical preferences and references, right?
Absolutely.
But here's the key. I was the first American athlete to endorse a Chinese product, right? And so they had a tennis shoe company that made a lot of Nikes and Adidas. They made all these other shoe brands, and they wanted to have their own in-house brand. And they were the biggest factory in Fujian province, right, in China. And so they said, we want to have our own brand. And so they started this brand called Athletic. And so they went through the dream team roster. Michael's with Nike, Larry and is with Converse, Magic with Converse. Who's this guy Drexler with? They said, we don't know. Let's give him a call. And that's how they called me, right? And so I endorsed the athletic brand for at least 11 years, and we did commercials. We opened up stores, retail stores. We did all kind of photo shoots and going through all parts of China. I probably made 10 trips a year for about 11 years, and I had the greatest experience ever. I don't speak much Mandarin, but that's a hard language to learn. But I enjoyed my time, and because I know so much about China, when the NBA was trying to get into it, David Stern would call me and ask me a few questions quite often.
See, and most people didn't know that, Clyde, because they look at what's happening now. But I respect that with you being one of the pioneers of the game and opening up that global market for us, man. I appreciate that.
I tell you what, the Chinese love everything Western. Well, they did back in the day. I don't know about today as much. but considering what has happened this year, But they were very kind. They loved basketball, NBA basketball in particular. I mean, they could not get enough. If you go to like certain parts of China, and all these cities had over 3-4 million people, every one of them I went to, right? They would have basketball courts downtown lit up like 40 courts in a row, and at 2 a.m. they'd be half full.
Wow.
That's how much they love. That's how much
the
they
game.
love basketball. Unbelievable.
That's crazy, man.
So Clyde, back to the big three. I've played against a lot of guys, overseas that have played in the big three as well. You have Franklin Sessions, you have Mario Chalmers. A lot of people don't realize that people get, professional deals from the big three. It's not just, a collective guys that formerly played. It's really competitive. Can you talk about that too? Amari Stoudemire, who plays on Maccabi Tel Aviv, that's a EuroLeague team. People don't really realize how competitive that league is and how it can help you get seen. Can you explain that too as well?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The big three, I was saying that earlier, it's a new game. It's called Fireball now, right? The big three. And it's because it is new. It's 3-on-3 professional, which is a whole different discipline than 5-on-5. You can't hide in 3-on-3. You can't get weak side help most of the time. you got to leave something open. And so you have to be a real-time player. You got to play defense and you got to play offense. You can't be a specialist. So that's what makes the big three so compelling. And so there have been a lot of guys who thought it was just going to be fluff basketball. But when they get out on the court and they find out this is real and you can get embarrassed if you don't bring it.
Right.
So that changes the whole tone. Let me just tell you.
There's been some guys that got out there and then the next year they wasn't out there anymore because they thought it was that.
Yeah, they don't make the team. And here's the key. Our player captains are the guys that select the players to play with them. And so guys like Steven Jackson, Rashard Lewis, Corey Maggette, these good players who are still really playing at a very high level. Now Joe Johnson, they select the players that play with them, and that's why they play so hard because they don't want to let anybody down. But you can only make those teams if they feel you can help them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be good to make a roster on the big three.
So can we also talk about the coaches that you've had? You've had 2 women's coaches win, titles, and can you talk about just, with the game evolving with girls being coaches? I think the big three is showing that girls can actually go out there and do their thing. How do you feel about, girls being coaches in the NBA and moving forward and coaching men?
It's 2020. The NBA got to wake up. Some of these women are better coaches than some of these men they got, a lot of these men. And they should be given the opportunity. It's 2020. Let's get gender equity or try and see how it goes. And the big three has been phenomenal. The last 2 championships in the big three were Nancy Lieberman's squad with Power, with Corey Maggette, Katino Mobley, Big Baby. And then this year, Lisa Leslie had Al Jefferson and Joe Johnson. They won the championship. So these women out-coached our men, and they will do the same thing in the NBA. I've got 2 daughters. I got 4 sisters. I was raised by 2 grandmothers. So I have a total respect for women, and they should be given every opportunity.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Clyde, man, listen, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the platform. Listen, and it's been great. And we're going to be at the end of this year probably the #1 podcast for basketball, and it's just
There ain't no probably. Take probably out of it. You will be number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
He's being modest.
Absolutely. I'm just being modest. But this was beyond amazing, man. This is beyond amazing.
Chris, thank you. For your viewers out there, Chris, do they know how good you are at what you do?
Oh, hey, Jordan, show him. Hey, Jordan, let's do the introduction. Jordan, do the introduction for Chris so people know.
Yeah.
Do the introduction, Jordan.
If I was a young guy trying to play basketball, I would stalk Chris Johnson for him to help me with my game.
Oh,
That's
sure.
He's the best in the world. If you want to get better, you ought to be stalking him. Trust me. That's all I can say.
I appreciate it.
Chris is phenomenal, man. I watched him work, and he inspired me, and I was retired.
Yeah.
I thought about coming back for a minute.
Yes. That's amazing. So we look forward to having Clyde out for workouts and being a part. I train Justice and Norris, and so whenever we get you out, we're all going to be in the gym together. So we want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Clyde.
We appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Love you guys. Continue success.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.